Hi, everybody. This is David Z. Morris reporting from Lower Manhattan for The Rage on the trial of Roman Storm, the Tornado Cash case. We had a short, but not that short day today. A juror was sick, and so we had no actual testimony. However, in something that is very typical of this case, we still managed to have 2 full hours of back and forth between prosecution, defense, and the judge, primarily having to do with what certain witnesses can say, what witnesses will actually appear, what we can expect coming up in the rest of the case. Now, one of the important questions about evidence and testimony that came up today was whether a forthcoming defense witness would be able to talk about the fact that the DAO and the governance system around Tornado Cash kept it operational after the August 22 sanctions were imposed and then later lifted, and with Storm and basically everybody else taking a step back. Now, the defense's argument was that this would prove the correctness of Storm's intuition before August of 2022, or his knowledge that the DAO and the community would take over and change anything that they didn't like if he tried to change it. So, for example, changing routers to go to different pools or anything like that. Judge Fila ultimately denied that effort, so we will not have any discussion of the activities of the DAO or DAO members after August of 2022. Now, here's where we get to the really kind of shocking and news-breaking parts of this. We did find out that Thomas Schmidt, the Dragonfly Capital venture capitalist, who has been the subject of some debate to his testimony, we found out that his home was raided in the course of this investigation. Now, the reason this discussion came up, so his devices were seized. They were looking for evidence from this VC who invested in Tornado Cash about their activities and possibly his own. Now, the reason we know this is because Schmidt has been called by the defense to testify, but has basically, has pled the fifth, has said that he will not testify because he doesn't want to expose himself to possible criminal liability. The defense has argued that this is absurd, that Thomas made his investment in Tornado Cash 5 years ago, that the feds, if they were going to prosecute him, would have signaled that by now. What was shocking is that in response to this, the defense actually said, the prosecution would not say that Schmidt was out of jeopardy. It basically alluded to, they described him as a, quote, subject of the investigation. I'm not exactly sure whether there are nuances to the meaning of that term in this context, but both him and Haseeb Qureshi, who people will recognize that name, apparently are subjects of this investigation in some sense. So essentially, while they were not very direct about it, the government seemed to be saying, like, no, we can't promise this guy any kind of, that he's not the subject of any kind of investigation or that he's completely clear from prosecution here. So that was another disappointment for the defense, because Fila basically said, no, you can't bring this person in if there's some risk of them actually testifying to something that could put them in jeopardy. A couple of other little points. This will be for fans of crypto journalism. We will have witness testimony, it seems like, from Andrew Thurman, who is, he was at the time a CoinDesk reporter who messaged the team in the wake of the Ronin hack, and those messages became erroneously misrepresented as having come from Alexei Pertsev into the founders' group chat in such a way that in the indictment they sort of implied criminal intent, when actually they were questions being forwarded from a reporter, which is just, again, one of the evidentiary issues that has come up in this trial. Another possibility the defense has put forward, they might bring an expert witness to rebut the IRS tracer's testimony about Hongfeng Lin's funds going into Tornado Cash. That is, I think, unclear, but I can imagine they would want to get somebody in there. So we might see a witness to that effect. Finally, this was sort of talked around a little bit, but it does not seem like Roman Storm is very likely to testify in his own defense. I've gone, I think I've actually changed my view on this. I sort of thought it might be advantageous to him to explain his, his thinking, his motivations. But I spoke to a lawyer last night, actually, after our PubKey event, who said that, who reminded me, I guess I would say, that the prosecution would, if he gets up on the stand, make him sort of restate every single, even slightly or vaguely incriminating bit of text and behavior that the prosecution has brought forward. So maybe not to his advantage to get on the stand. And based on the conversation today having to do with logistics, it seems plausible that he will not. And if he does not, the timeline for this case right now is looking like we will probably get jury deliberations starting either Wednesday or more likely Thursday. And then obviously it's unpredictable when a verdict would come back from that, but probably a verdict on Thursday, I think, is what we're looking at now. So that's our update for today. Nothing massive, but I think this does speak to the amount of backroom wrangling going on in this case. It's very intense, and every little inch counts. So that is your update for the day. Follow The Rage. Go subscribe to therage.co. Follow me at David D. Morris. Thanks everybody for your attention.